The purpose of art is exactly the same as the purpose of these meetings. In other words, it is to, in these meetings, we are speaking, whether we're having a conversation or a guided meditation. And we're using words, which are expressions of thoughts. But the purpose of those thoughts is not to lead to other thoughts. And that is what is unique about these meetings, or any true spiritual meeting, is that unlike most thoughts, whose purpose is to deliver its referent, is to go towards to lead the thinker towards the object that is being thought. What is unique about these meetings is that they take thought in the opposite direction. Thought is like a piece of string. Actually, attention is like a piece of elastic because it's stretched, and there are always two ends to it. Thought is in time. It's always coming from somewhere and going towards something. So it's like a piece of elastic made out of time. On one end is the object. On the other end is its source. Almost all thoughts go towards objects. Events in time or objects in space. And the purpose of them is to lead the thinker or the hearer towards the object or experience. What is unique about these meetings and similar meetings is that it takes thought in the other direction. It turns thought around towards its source, not towards its referent. And that is what is unique also about the thought about our true nature. The thought about ourself is a unique thought, is that it is a thought that brings thought to an end. It delivers thought to its source. Now, art does exactly the same thing, but with perception rather than thought. Perception means seeing, hearing, tasting, touching, and smelling. So a painter uses mostly sight, which means color. A musician uses sound. A sculptor uses sight and touch. A cook uses taste and smell. A flower arranger uses sight and smell. So all the arts, in fact, have a mixture of all the 5 sense perceptions, but they focus predominantly on one. A painter on seeing, a musician on hearing. And the purpose of an artist is to take the sense perceptions on a journey, not towards the object, but towards the subject. In exactly the same way that thought can go in 2 directions, either towards the object or the state, or it can go towards its source in pure awareness. The purpose of art is to take the senses on a journey back to the source of perception, which is pure awareness. Now, when thought goes on this journey and takes us back to its source, thought comes to an end, and the experience that ensues is called understanding or truth. In other words, the experience of understanding or truth is not something that happens in thought. It happens when thought comes to an end in its source. Yeah? Now, when an artist, or just an experience in nature, takes the senses on a journey and delivers the senses back to the source of perception, the perception dies or dissolves in the same awareness that the thought dissolves in. And yet we give it a different name. When the thought dissolves, we call it understanding or truth. When the perception dissolves, we call it beauty. Just as understanding is not in thought, beauty is not in perception. It is the dissolution of perception in its source. And that is the purpose of art. To reveal that experience, to deliver beauty. Of course, in our culture we have completely lost this understanding, so we think that beauty is a property that belongs to some perceptions or some objects and not others. So we say this is beautiful and that is ugly. But that's a misunderstanding of what the real experience of beauty is, which is this collapse of sense perception into its source, and the revelation of pure awareness. And while we're on the subject, we have three realms of perception, three realms of experience. We think, we perceive, thought and sense perception, but we also feel. So there is a third path. The first path, the path of thought, is called Jnana Yoga, the path of thought. The second path, the path of the artist, is called Rupa Yoga. Rupa in Sanskrit means form or beauty. And that's a very beautiful understanding right there. Rupa both means form, but its deeper meaning is beauty, which is what form becomes when it dissolves. So there's a profound understanding just in the use of this word rupa, meaning both form and the dissolution of form in the experience of beauty. So the first yoga, Jnana Yoga, the way of thought. The second yoga, the way of the artist, the way of perception. And then the third yoga, the way of feeling, which is the way of devotion, the way of love. And the way of devotion, most feelings go outwards towards an object. And the way of devotion, in acknowledgement of that, puts an object in the path of your devotion. And that object is either a teacher or a god or some kind of object towards which we can devote our love. However, in the true devotional path, at some stage, that object is recognized to be just a placeholder, and the object is taken away. So this object-focused devotion no longer has anything or anyone to attach itself to. And devotion, divested of its object, sinks back into its source, which is pure love. So just as devotion, just as attention is pure awareness plus an object, so devotion is pure love plus an object. And just as when our attention is divested of the object, it flows back to its source and is revealed as pure awareness, so when our love outgrows all the limited objects towards which it could focus its love, it is divested, our devotion is divested of the object, and it flows back to its source and is revealed as pure love. So the path of art, the function of the artist, is to take the senses on a journey that may seem to begin with, just like the path of devotion may seem to begin with to go outwards towards an object. So the path of art, to begin with, seems to go out towards an object. For instance, you listen to a piece of music. The music takes you into form. It takes you into sound. If you look at a painting, you go into the painting. You explore the painting. You lose yourself in the painting. You go on this sensual journey. But at some stage, just when you think you're going to arrive at the object, it vanishes. And in that vanishing, sense perception returns to its source. So that is the function of art. That is why we have art in our culture. It's the way of the senses. So these three paths, the way of thought, the way of knowledge, the way of love, and the way of, or the feeling, or the way of perception or beauty. The way of perception, the two traditional paths of jnana and bhakti, the way of knowledge and love, are well documented in the traditions. The way of beauty, the way of the senses, is not really spoken very much about, because in the traditional progressive path, the body and the world were considered to be distractions, dangerous abodes where you get distracted from your true nature. So it was only in the more esoteric tantric traditions that this inclusion of the body and the world was part of the spiritual path. And in this tradition, we go on each of the three paths equally. We're interested in the entire realm of experience. Thought, that is the mind. Feeling, that is the body. And perception, that is the world.
That's really fascinating, because it adds on to, I get a lot of feedback on my landscapes, and people say, well, it's like they say when they look at the photograph, they go onto this little journey. And I never quite understood. I mean, I understand it because I see it too. But then when it gets recorded, I'd never heard anybody say, like you're saying that you can actually take that back.
Well, they don't know that they're being taken back, and it's best that they don't know, because then if they know it, it starts becoming conceptual.
Right.
It's best if they don't know what's happening to them.
Right.
You don't look at one of Cézanne's paintings or listen to Beethoven trying to work out where your sense perception. You just give yourself. You surrender yourself to the experience. You just say to the music or the paint, just take me. Just take me. I trust you. I know that you're going where I want to go. Or when you're walking in nature, you do the same thing. You just abandon yourself. You don't think about it.
Right.
That is why we love walking in nature. We don't have to formulate just before we go for a walk exactly why we're going for a walk. It would kind of kill the experience.
Yes, it would.
But without formulating it, what we're offering the body to nature. We're saying to nature, please take my senses on this journey and return me to myself, return my senses to their source. So that's a good reason for taking photographs. It's not a reason for stopping to take photographs. Keep taking photographs if it's what you enjoy to do. And don't try and calculate how to bring about this effect. It can't be done. It comes through intuition. You have to have the skill, which you obviously have as a photographer or a painter or musician. And then it has to be a kind of intuition. And it starts with what you see in the landscape. So the first thing is that for you to go out in the landscape and to be taken to this experience of beauty, then you have to make an image that has the power of the original experience that you had in nature.
Right.
You have to stand in front of the landscape and wait till the image comes to you, and you think, that's the image. And if you do that, your image, if you're a photographer, your painting, your composition, will somehow have the power to take the viewer or the hearer backwards towards its source. That's the power of art. The power of a true work of art.
Thank you. It's great.
It's lunchtime.